This is 18th century France, the richest country in Europe, the most cultured, the most fashionable. If London or Vienna was wearing it, eating it, or thinking it, odds are France thought of it first. And this is the same France 10 years later. The king, executed. The queen, executed. Half the government, executed. The other half executed the first half and is already lining up itself. How? How does the most successful country on the continent fall this far in a single decade? Get comfortable. I'm going to show you how to break a country in 10 easy steps. Do not try this at home. Let's start with the setup. French society was a pyramid of 3 estates, and if you just mentally put yourself at the top, bad news. There's a 98% chance you'd be at the bottom. The first estate, the clergy. 130,000 people. They own 1/10 of all the land. They pay no taxes. The second, the nobility. 400,000 people. They own the offices, the forests, and the right to hunt across your fields. Your fields. They pay no taxes. And the third estate, everyone else. 26 million people, farmers, artisans, merchants, doctors, lawyers. They pay everything. Tax to the king, a tithe to the church, dues to the local lord, a salt tax, and a road toll. For roads they walk on because they can't afford a carriage. At the top of the pyramid sits Louis XVI. And here's the thing, Louis isn't a villain. He's a kind, devout, modest man. He loves his wife, his locksmithing hobby, and his afternoon nap. The problem is, his job is absolute monarch, and his talent is locksmith. It happens. We all know someone promoted way past their skill level. This one just happens to run a country. His wife, Marie Antoinette, an Austrian princess. The people don't like her. She spends so much on dresses, they nickname her Madame Deficit. You've probably heard that when told the people had no bread, she said, "Let them eat cake." Yeah, she never said it. The line is older than she is. But notice, when people are starving, they don't care what you actually said. Reputation runs just fine without facts. Now, the money. France is broke. The 7 Years' War, minus. Versailles and its 1,000 servants, minus. And then Louis makes a move I almost respect. He funds the American Revolution. A revolution against a king for someone else's freedom on credit. Find the mistake in that sentence. Take your time. There are 4. The Americans win and France gets moral satisfaction, the eternal friendship of George Washington, and 4 billion livres of debt. The interest eats half the budget. Finance ministers come and go like TV pilots, and everyone pitches the same idea. What if the rich pay taxes too? And everyone, right after that pitch, stops being finance minister. Coincidence? I think not. And in 1788, nature joins in. Hailstones the size of fists wreck the harvest, and the winter is the coldest in a century. Bread prices spike so hard, a worker spends 9 of every 10 coins just on bread. Remember this, you'll need it. Great revolutions don't start with philosophers. They start with a price tag. The king needs money. The nobles refuse to pay. So Louis pulls a tool out of the closet nobody's used in 175 years. The Estates General. A grand assembly of all 3 estates. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong. It opens with an argument about procedure. Do we vote by estate, so clergy and nobles always win 2-1? Or by head, so the third estate finally decides something? And they argue for a month and a half. A month and a half about how they'll vote. If you've ever sat in meetings like that at work, you understand the third estate. By the way, what would you have done in the deputy's shoes? Quietly gone home or gone looking for another room? Tell me in the comments. Let's see how many revolutionaries we've got here. The Third Estate gets fed up and declares itself the National Assembly. Translation: we are France. The rest of you can join if you behave. The king responds by locking them out of their meeting hall. Official reason? Renovations. Sudden, very urgent. Renovations. The deputies walk to the indoor tennis court next door and swear not to leave until France has a constitution. It's called the Tennis Court Oath, the greatest event in tennis history, and yes, I'm counting every Wimbledon final. The king pulls troops toward Paris. Paris draws the only possible conclusion: they're coming to break us up. And on July 14th, the crowd marches on the Bastille, an old fortress prison. Officially, for the gunpowder. Unofficially, because for 200 years, the Bastille was the symbol of we can lock up anyone. Inside, by the way, sat a grand total of 7 prisoners, 4 counterfeiters, 2 madmen, and 1 count whose own family had him locked up. Deservedly, by the way. But the symbolism, first rate. They promise the commander his life if he surrenders. He surrenders. He's unlucky. That, sadly, is going to be a recurring segment in this story. Louis gets the news. The Bastille has fallen. He asks, "Is this a revolt?" "No, sire. This is a revolution." Best dialogue of the 18th century, and it's real. Then, the avalanche. A rumor crawls through the villages that the nobles hired bandits to burn the harvest. Evidence? None. But the peasants, just in case, start burning down the castles. It's called the Great Fear, though, oddly, the ones afraid are mostly the nobles. On the night of August 4th, the National Assembly abolishes feudalism. All of it. In one night. Noble deputies step up to the podium one after another and give up their privileges, partly out of idealism, partly because their castles are on fire right now. Nothing builds generosity like a glow on the horizon. 3 weeks later, the Declaration of the Rights of Man. All men are born free and equal in rights. 1 page of text and 1,000 years of born a baron, therefore right, goes in the bin. And in October, thousands of Parisian women, after another day in the breadline, grab their kitchen knives and march to Versailles on foot. 12 miles. In the rain. Angrier than you can imagine. They storm the palace and suggest the royal family relocate to Paris. The suggestion left no room for no. The King of France now lives under the watch of his own people, and notice, the revolution isn't even a year old. After that, for 2 years, everything looks almost decent. A constitution is written, the king pretends he's fine being a constitutional monarch, and then he decides to run. And here, dear viewer, I want you to appreciate the plan. Night. The king disguised as a servant. The queen as a governess. So far, so good, right? Now the details. Instead of 2 fast coaches, 1 enormous slow one with the whole family inside, plus stops to eat, during the escape, snack breaks. In the town of Varennes, the postmaster stares at the servant, then at the coin in his hand. On the coin, the king's profile. He looks up, down, up. The profile matches. Curtain. The royal family is brought back, and the crowd meets the coach with total silence. Not with shouting, with silence. If you've ever heard 100,000 people go quiet, you know shouting would be better. The king wanted to flee his own people? Great! Now the whole nation knows the king is not with us. Meanwhile, the neighboring monarchs watch France in horror. The logic is simple. If the French got away with it, what will ours think? Austria and Prussia threaten to invade. France responds by declaring war on them first. The plan? A small victorious war will unite the nation. Write down how many times that plan has worked in history. 0. 0 times. It starts catastrophically. The Prussians march on Paris and publish a manifesto. Touch the king, and we level the city. Paris reads it and concludes, "Ah, so the king is their guy. Thanks for the tip." On August 10th, the crowd storms the royal palace. The monarchy is abolished. France is a republic. And in September, the thing happens that the revolution will later remember very awkwardly, staring at the floor. Mobs break into the prisons and, over 5 days, kill more than 1,000 inmates, enemies of the revolution. Aristocrats and priests, but also thieves, debtors, and prostitutes who simply had the bad luck to be locked up at the wrong time. The revolution starts eating people. For now, other people. Remember the word "for now." The king is tried for treason. And here, quick question, no peeking. What margin do you think decides his fate? 100 votes? 10? 1? The vote on execution is out loud, by name. 721 deputies, the whole country watching, the tensest reality show of the century. Death wins by a margin of 1 vote. 1 vote. On January 21st, 1793, Louis climbs the scaffold. He tries to give a speech. On signal, the drums kick in. Not a word is heard. The blade falls. The crowd dips handkerchiefs in the blood as souvenirs. I'd make a joke, but there's nothing funny here. From now on, there's no way back for anyone, and everyone knows it. Okay, stop. At this point in the story, it's easy to lose track, so let's sync up. Who's who in the summer of 1793? Hit pause. I'll wait. No, I won't. So, on France's table, war against all of Europe at once, a revolt in the Vendée, bread getting expensive again, and in Parliament, 2 factions tearing each other apart. The Girondins, who say, "A little softer, please," and the Montagnards, who say, "A little harder, please." Guess who wins? Power goes to the Committee of Public Safety, 12 men, powers unlimited. The face of the committee, Maximilien Robespierre. And now pay attention. A lawyer from the provinces, lives in a rented room, doesn't drink, doesn't steal, gives half his salary to the poor. Nickname, the Incorruptible. Lovely guy, right? Remember this moment. This man is about to run the bloodiest year in French history. The most dangerous people in history aren't cynics, friends. They're idealists who really mean it. Robespierre's logic is flawless, and that's the horror of it. The Republic is surrounded by enemies, so the enemies must be found and removed. The law of suspects is passed. You can arrest anyone suspicious. The definition? I'll paraphrase. Those who haven't proven their loyalty to the revolution. Haven't proven. So a suspect is anyone who's been arrested. The circle closes. The lawyers give a standing ovation. The guillotine switches to assembly line mode. First the Queen, then the aristocrats, then the Girondins, revolutionaries who weren't revolutionary enough. Then Danton, the man who helped start this terror, but suggested easing off. Before his execution, he tells the executioner, "Show my head to the people. It's worth it." Charisma is the last thing they take. 17,000 executed by sentence. Tens of thousands more with no sentence at all. In Lyon, they fire grape shot at the condemned. The guillotine couldn't keep up with quota. And Paris? Paris just carries on. The theaters run. The fashion magazines come out. They sell lemonade next to the scaffold, and the front row seats are taken by morning. A person gets used to anything in about 2 weeks. That's the most chilling thing you'll hear today. And notice, I didn't even make a joke. Robespierre wants more. The church is the enemy, but you can't go fully godless either. So he found his own religion, the cult of the Supreme Being. And there's our modest lawyer, in a sky blue coat, leading a festive procession and setting fire to a cardboard statue of atheism. The deputies watch and, for the first time, all think the same thing at once. The next cardboard statue is one of us. On July 28, 1794, 9 Thermidor on the revolutionary calendar, the convention wakes up with a simple thought. Any of us could be next on the list, so we act first. Robespierre is declared an outlaw. The next morning he rides the same cart, down the same street, to the same scaffold. And the crowd cheers exactly as it cheered for his enemies. The machine you built comes for you one day. That's not a metaphor. That's the schedule. Here it is, by the way. Feast your eyes.
After Robespierre, France exhales. The way you exhale after a nightmare. The terror is wound down. The guillotine goes in the corner. The new government is called the Directory. 5 directors, 2 councils, and corruption as an art form. The country wants no more ideas. It wants bread, quiet, and to be left alone. Understandable. Everyone understands. But the war is still on. And in war, the star of one artillery officer from Corsica rises. Short, thin, French with an accent, but with an absolute sense of the right moment. He beats the Austrians in Italy so hard, every newspaper writes about it. He runs an expedition to Egypt, militarily a disaster, PR-wise, biblical. And by 1799, he's the most popular man in France, and the Directory is the least popular outfit in France. You can already see where this is going, right? On November 9th, 1799, Napoleon enters the assembly hall with grenadiers. The deputies scream, "Outlaw!" The soldiers carry the deputies out of the hall. Literally, by hand. The Republic ends not with a volley and not with a storm, but with a bit of shoving in the doorway. Appreciate the arc. 10 years ago, the French stormed the Bastille to never again submit to one man. Now all the power is with one man, and France applauds him. In 5 years, he'll put a crown on his own head, himself, on himself, in front of the Pope, whom he invited to watch. So, was it all for nothing? Actually, no. Feudalism never came back. The Declaration of Rights stayed, for good. The estates never rose again, and every monarch in Europe now went to sleep with a thought they'd never had before. What if my people can also count to 3 estates? The next 100 years of the continent's history are the ideas let out of the bottle in 1789. And the bottle, as you've guessed, does not go back on. A revolution is like a fire. It builds nothing on its own, but afterward, you build on cleared ground. The only question is, who burns in the process? And you already know the answer, including the ones who lit it. And the man who picked the crown out of the ashes? Oh, that's the best story of them all. How the son of a Corsican lawyer became emperor of half of Europe, and how he lost everything except his place in the textbooks. That's the next video. Subscribe. There's more coming. More wars, more intrigue, more brilliant decisions with catastrophic consequences. Napoleon is already waiting. And one more question to chew on. Napoleon, did the revolution win there or lose? See you in the comments.